Good day, fellow Jersey Nerds, and welcome to episode 66 of the Jersey Nerds podcast, powered by HockeyJerseyConcepts.com. I'm your host, Ryan, and today on the Nerdcast, we're going to be coming up with ideas for vintage jersey programs. We're going to be doing some brainstorming. We're going to come up with some modern ideas. Last time we saw a vintage jersey program in the NHL was around 2003, 2004. I think 6 or 7 teams participated. So we'll be coming up with a modern version of that. And we'd love to hear what you guys think of a vintage jersey program and love to hear your ideas. So anytime you can contact us on Twitter at HockeyJC, or you can email the podcast anytime, podcast at HockeyJerseyConcepts.com. Joining me for this brainstorm session is Sean. What's going on, Sean?
Rocking out in my 2014 Pittsburgh Stadium Series jersey with the man, Sid the Kid Crosby, on the back. Love this jersey, and the only jersey the Penguins ever wore in Vegas gold that people universally like.
Yeah, that really wasn't a bad Stadium Series jersey. So, and you got Crosby on the back, so that's okay. I guess just the chrome primary logos were the big problem on that one.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, if that's your biggest problem with the Stadium Series jersey, you're doing all right.
Fair enough. Also joining us for this brainstorming session is Beepo. What's going on, Beepo?
Just recording a podcast, Ryan. How about you?
Love it. Also recording a podcast. Now that the winner of the Concept of the Year has been announced, it's you. You saw the championship plaque. It'll be delivered probably within a week. What do you think about winning Concept of the Year this year?
I'm pretty sure we talked about this on last podcast, but again, it's an honor. I mean, I'll be honest, I voted for Christian's Concept. I thought his was better, but I will take the honor. It's definitely an honor for sure, and I will accept that honor.
The people have spoken. You came up with a solid Ottawa Senators concept, and the people spoke. You won by 6 votes, which in our voting is a pretty big spread.
Again, I was surprised because I voted for Christian, but the people have spoken, like you said. One vote doesn't sway at all.
Well, hopefully when the championship plaque comes in, you'll be able to share a couple photos, maybe on our Instagram feed or all our social media feeds. So I think people would kind of like to see that. So that'd be pretty cool.
I don't mean to say this in a braggadocious way, but is this the first time that the winner of something like this has also designed the logo for it?
No, I think last time Christian won the Concept of the Year, he may have designed the logo. I don't remember, but I think there was, or one of the years that Justin won Concept of the Year, he designed Concept of the Year logo. Okay. So, pretty good vote overall. Decent year for 2018 for concepts. We've reformatted for 2019 where it's the competitions that'll be entered into the Concept of the Year vote, but we're ready to go. And this time next year, we'll be crowning the 2019 Concept of the Year. But we're here for a vintage jersey brainstorming session. Let's get at it. All right, so a vintage jersey program. Generally, the idea of this came from to open up the 2018-2019 season. A lot of teams came out with third jerseys that are rehashed retro jerseys. And by the time we got to the third or fourth one, it was just a little tiring. And at the same time, it's not a special occasion anymore when Washington wears their alternate jersey. It's hardly an interesting retro jersey anymore. It's just an alternate jersey. And the same could be said for Arizona. So we want to come up with some ideas on how to implement a vintage jersey program, because I think we all have different ideas on how many times you want to see a jersey and how a program could be effective. I think the Carolina Hurricanes probably demonstrated it perfectly so far this season with their Hartford Whalers vintage jerseys, where they're going to wear them twice. They made it a special occasion. So personally for me, I think the overlaying criteria needs to be that it has to be a special occasion. It can't just be some sort of kind of throwaway midday game midweek game where not the whole hockey nation is not paying attention. Sean, we'll start with you and just your general outline and direction you would take a vintage jersey program.
Yeah, first and foremost, I think that Calgary isn't allowed to wear their red jerseys ever again. First and foremost, because they, I think, are the example of how not to do a vintage jersey program. In that, stop giving us the same thing every single year and essentially being a tease without the full commitment of switching over. If you're going to do that, make it your home and road. I think the best way to do it is to do what Calgary did in 2010, 11, whatever it was, that they did the Calgary Tigers jersey. Really promote teams to do faux backs, I think, would be the best way to do this. Because it forces teams really to be creative with it in that, these don't have to be NHL throwbacks per se. They can be, a number of hockey leagues that haven't existed for 30 years. Plus, and really just make a team come up with something new and original, and then bring a night up for it. I mean, how many of us would know the friggin' Calgary Tigers existed if a team that hasn't existed for almost 100 years? How many of us would even know about them if it wasn't for that game?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, as far as faux back jerseys, I love them. I'm a big fan of faux back jerseys or jerseys inspired by the past that aren't necessarily directly connected with the franchise, but still have some sort of connection. But I personally would more like to see that saved for the outdoor classic games. And I'll outline that in my vintage jersey program. But Beepo, let's go to you and just a general guideline and set of parameters for your vintage jersey program.
I think what I would do would kind of be to kind of rotate between the divisions. So, let's say the first year it starts, the Metro gets it. The next year it moves on to the Atlantic, then the Central, then the Pacific. Then it'll, just repeat and repeat. Each team, I think I'd give them each 2 retro jerseys, a dark and a white. And maybe 3 to 5 games a year within the division, they both wear their retro jerseys. That way it's a complete retro matchup. You don't have one super modern jersey against one that looks, like it belongs 100 years ago, something like that. That way it kind of all goes together. You don't have it happening too often, but whenever it does happen, it's kind of all out.
So,
and then I wouldn't really lump faux backs into that as well. I think faux backs are different because they're actually original, unless you have to have a faux back like Vegas.
So if you're doing one division per year, two jerseys per team, you're looking at about 16 retro jerseys it's just for that year.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point, but yeah,
and
there's a lot of jerseys. But is that really as many more or less than we have this year? I haven't counted.
If you're counting alternates,
a lot of retro jerseys this year.
If you're counting alternates, I guess you're in that neighborhood. Now, would each team need to have like a matching set? So if they had let's say a black jersey from 1955, would they need to also have a white jersey from the same era?
I'm going to say not necessarily. That might look the best for some teams, but not necessarily. I think it would be neat to see them mix it up as well.
Any concern about teams blowing through their retro jerseys too quickly? Or in your program, if a jersey was successful, would a team be able to bring it back when it was their turn in 4 years?
I definitely think under this program it would be a lot easier to bring it back in 4 years because like we saw with a lot of the jerseys this year, they were around 2 years ago and were in a lot of cases there for multiple years beforehand. This time it would be there once every 4 years. It would be a little bit more special than, oh, we just saw that 2 years ago. Lame. Whatever. It's not new.
Sean, for your vintage jersey program, how often could teams wear their vintage jerseys?
I'd say as often as you wanted. But understand that you're still within the parameters of the NHL's like uniform rules. I think that realistically, the way that you'd want to keep it is to about 3. But again, you get to the whole thing of if a team makes the playoffs, it wants to wear those for every home playoff game. Like, go right ahead. but during the year, 2 to 3 is a good number, maybe 5 at the absolute most, depending on, like, if it's Toronto, for example, and you want to crank out like 2 or 3 jerseys. Pittsburgh, where you have a lot of options, yeah, sure. But, so a team like Columbus, they really have 2 options. They can either go for something inspired by the chill or inspired by their original jerseys. And I don't think you have a chill night, you have like a Mark Denis night, and then there you go.
So, my vintage jersey program would focus on making the game special. I would, I'd want the games nationally broadcast, either whether it be NBC or Sportsnet in Canada. Is that so much a concern for you guys, whether or not the games are special, or is it just let's get these jerseys on the ice because that's the unique factor? Sean?
No, I think it's about the night as a whole. I really don't think that, again, not to pick on Calgary, but their fans really do have a tendency of making any sort of comment section about, that thing that they call red jersey. Like, there's nothing special about that. There's nothing, it's not like they're honoring, the team special players that wore it. Like, really tied to something. If you're retiring a guy's number, crank out the jerseys that said player wore. In 10 years, the Preds might be retiring Jason Arnett's number.
I don't think so, Sean. That might be some wishful thinking.
Okay, it's a little biased on my part, but okay, let's say they do that. Crank out the original Edge jerseys for a night.
Whew. Those, I don't know.
Like that sort of thing.
I don't see, that's not, those jerseys are pretty terrible in my book. So I don't know if that is even.
No, but in the context of Nashville, that's when they first started really making the playoffs every year.
That's true. So maybe for Nashville fans, that's a special jersey.
That's exactly it. Is that it's like that's how you make it special? Is that for us sitting back here, we might, it's different if you remember these, but they're going to be, kids in the audience who only remember the Preds ever wearing gold and navy at that point. They see these things and they're like, oh, reflective arms. And even if it's just for a warm up, I know that several times a year, the Halifax Mooseheads are cranking out vintage warm up jerseys. But the catch is that all the vintage warm-up jerseys have the names of the top Mooseheads players of all time. So make it into something like that. Make this an event. Make it something that the fans can look at and and actually have a little sense of like really nice, authentic nostalgia instead of I remember when they wore these. It's like, okay, but they wore these last year. Like, come on.
How about you, Beepo? Any sense of needing to make the games special? Again, I touched on what my vintage jersey program would be, where these vintage games would be nationally televised, but any sense or of urgency for you to make your vintage games special?
I definitely think the teams in the league should put some effort into sort of marketing these games or sort of making them into something special. Not necessarily like a Winter Classic type of special. I think that can be saved for the Winter Classic, or I don't think it necessarily needs to have an event behind it to warrant this, like a jersey retirement. But I definitely think the league, in this case, should, kind of market these as a special night, something different, maybe do something to honor the past teams, but that might get stale after doing it multiple years. So maybe just save that for, times where it's more appropriate. And just other than that, just make it a special vintage night because, damn, throwback is an entire trend right now, as we know, in jerseys and pop culture in general. And also, I just want to add one stipulation to my plan as well. I wouldn't limit the only throwback jerseys that year to that division for something like a jersey retirement night, or if there's a team going through an anniversary and they want to wear some throwbacks. Winter Classic, of course. I think those would be the exceptions, but other than that, keep it to that one division.
Interesting. See, if a team wanted to wear a throwback because they were retiring a number, that for me, that would be included in the vintage jersey program. And that would just add to the how special the game could be, They're retiring a number. It's going to be a nationally broadcast game. They're wearing the vintage jerseys. The visiting team then is also kind of forced into wearing a vintage jersey as well. So for me and my program, that would be included in one of the special games. Again, as I mentioned off the top, we'd like to hear what the listeners think about a vintage jersey program. Let us know on Twitter at HockeyJC, or you can email us podcast@hockeyjerseyconcepts.com. Let's hear your ideas, and we'll read them on a future podcast. I think that'd be really interesting because I kind of seems that the amount of use that people, or the amount of times people want to see vintage or retro jerseys varies from person to person. So it'd very much be interesting to see what other people's ideas are. I think what Carolina did this year was really well done. And the only thing I would have liked to have seen was that it was a national game. I mean, their use of Twitter, like, when they scored, this is the first goal by a Carolina Hurricane. This is the first goal, or pardon me, this is the first goal by a Hartford Whaler since, 1995 or whatever it was. So I think that was a cool thing. They just needed to have it as a national game. So let's get into really nitty-gritty specifics of your jersey program. Outline it from start to finish. Get as detailed as you want. And Sean, we'll go to you if anything you want to add, and get really detailed here.
All right. So I think that one of the things that I really want to see here is I want to see some really nice obscure jerseys come back. So first of all, a Toronto-Montreal game, for example, I'd love to see a game where, in the early to mid 1930s, the Leafs wore, that standard 4 stripe in the arm, 2 massive stripe on the hem, sort of vintage Leafs jersey we saw for the Winter Classic, right? The caveat to that is you wear the numbers that they wore at the time that were just like outlines. The numbers were blue and the outline was white, and the Habs wear the jerseys that they only wore against the Red Wings and just the Red Wings. Yeah, you wear those. They cranked those out back for the first time since 1938. The Penguins finally do a throwback of the blue jerseys from the 74 to 80 era ones. Those sort of iceberg tipped arm stripe ones. I'd really, really, really like to see that for sure. St. Louis, I want to see the yellow yoke jerseys thrown out there. For the Rangers, I want to see the New York script come back. For me, I think that that's the jersey that they, at this point, they were getting on 40 years since those have come out. The Vegas and Columbus have to do sort of fullbacks with their respective successful ECHL guys. Winnipeg's an interesting one. I want to see the original WHA jerseys with the script brought back verbatim, just as it is, that sort of thing, with the rounded name bar, different colored. The Sabres are an interesting one. Let's see the Red Sword jerseys again. I don't want to see a consistent era. I really don't. But I want it to be a consistent era with regard to teams facing each other. So, if the Sabres do that, then the Sens break out the old school Sens away jersey, if that makes sense. And other than that, let's see some unused jerseys. Let's see the Florida Panthers crank out that yellow jersey they flirted with in the mid-90s. Let's see.
Now you're talking about a completely different thing. Like, those aren't vintage jerseys. Those are just that's the NHL unused jersey program.
Yeah, do it. Why? Well, okay. We have proof of concept that they exist, right? Let's see the Pens do the black Robo Pen.
St. Louis Blues, the trumpet jersey.
No. Mike Keane will personally come and kick Vladimir Tarasenko's ass if that happens. I think, anyways.
So that was a lot of retro jerseys, Sean. Do you want to see those all in the same year and then come out with a completely new set the next year, or?
No, I want to see these sort of these are just designs that I think, and the key thing with these designs is that these are designs that teams haven't done yet. That's the caveat for this: is you can't do a jersey that's already been done. You can't really keep Buffalo from bringing out the vintage jersey we saw 10 years ago. Make them come out with that script alternate with the stitch numbers. Make them come out with something like that if they can't just pull something from the past. Oh, and for the Sharks, because it's some weird history where technically they line up, but technically they don't. We finally get the Sharks to wear Golden Steel throwbacks.
They don't line up. Enough of that.
They line up
they don't.
Technically in the loosest way possible.
The Sharks were an expansion team.
Yeah, but they were owned by the guys who at one point owned the Steels.
If the modern Ottawa Senators can throw back to the old Ottawa Senators, why can't the Sharks do that?
That's fair. Yeah, that's a good point.
And St. Louis Blues also give the Eagles some love. Like, for God's sakes, just do the St. Louis Eagles throwback. Like, wheel out the 98-year-old only player from that team still alive.
So, Sean, I'm like, this is weird because you're coming up with a lot of great vintage jerseys, but then at the same time, when a bunch of vintage jerseys came out as alternates this year, we kind of ragged on them because, it was just
we
boring.
Saw them already.
Right, because it's something we've seen already. So you want new things we haven't seen.
Exactly. We need the key thing with this is to keep it simple, stupid. And if you wanted to go back to a full-time vintage design, do what Pittsburgh did and commit.
I think the difference, too, with this year is that they didn't say this is going to be a throwback jersey. They said this is going to be an alternate. They never said it was going to be a throwback, and they kind of had they didn't have, big unveilings for most of them, I don't believe. But they still kind of touted it as, an event that they're going to be unveiling and not just, oh, hey, we're wearing our old jerseys, So we're just, expecting something, and then it's just boom, we saw this 2 years ago. Oh, well, that's boring.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'll go into... Big difference if we go into it expecting something old.
Yes, absolutely. I'll go into a few specifics of what my vintage jersey program would be, and I've already focused on the fact that I want the games to be pretty special. So national broadcasts, and it would be probably a Saturday game. I think that's when you can get the most eyes on the game. It would just be one game a month. So we're looking for two marquee teams, quality teams that year who are going to participate. So I don't know. Right now you could have a Toronto versus maybe even a Toronto versus Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay wears their originals and Toronto wears something from the 40s or 50s. That'd be pretty interesting. That'd be kind of a marquee matchup. But you have one in November. You have one in December. January would just be the Winter Classic, so you don't need a vintage jersey game there. You have one in February and you have one in March. So these are 4 special vintage jersey games. It's laid out. Teams get to, beforehand, teams get to do their own kind of vintage jersey reveals. And one thing that I request that I know isn't going to happen, Fanatics is not allowed to do the retro jerseys the replicas that go on sale.
Oh.
Because they are ruining them.
I got to stipulate that.
You're throwing that in too?
No, I'm going to throw in something even, something that I think that a lot of people don't remember when Reebok did them. You need to release these to the public and sell them as regular jerseys. Don't do what Reebok did with so many of the early vintage jerseys and only release them as the Edge Authentics and, don't wheel them out to the public, because then you get what happened with the 2011 Winter Classic with the Montreal jersey, where Reebok produces the Frankenstein jersey that looks nothing like it. Yeah. Or the New Jersey Stadium Series jersey. Those sort of, weird travesties where they're just vintage releases of jerseys and they aren't actually until you slap the patch on there, but they don't look right.
2008 Buffalo Winter Classic.
Oh, exactly. Basically, you just artificially
the Mighty Ducks Edge throwbacks as well.
Yep.
They just released the vintage cut.
Yep. Same thing there.
Or the Canucks. Their their skate on a plate original throwback.
Yep,
The
that's
time
right.
they did that in like 2015. Yeah, it was never released as a premiere cut, and that would have sold amazing. So why you want to do that, I don't know. You're just going to force people to commit so many jersey fouls. Release them properly, please.
All right, let's go to Beepo and your specifics. Lay out your very specific jersey plan, when these games would happen, and how you would roll it out and so forth.
Well, I've already gotten somewhat specific with mine, more than than I probably should have, because I didn't realize this was coming up. But I do. I know Sean brainstormed a lot of different jerseys that he wanted teams to wear. I haven't really thought of it through that much, but I know for sure that like I said, I would want the games to be hyped up at least a little bit, and I would want the matchups to be, era appropriate, not necessarily like the exact same year, maybe give or take 10 years or so, 20, just something that looks like it matches together. And I definitely don't want to see all the teams wearing a jersey from the same era in the same year as well, kind of like what Sean said, because it could definitely be orchestrated before the season to have the teams, like, okay, you two go with like 90s-esque jerseys, the rest of you go with these and that, that way they at least have some matchup that'll look good together, but they won't all be the exact same era. And then I would also say that, like I said, teams could bring back the same jersey after 4 years, and I don't think it'll get too stale, at least not that second time, maybe the third, I don't know. But for teams like Pittsburgh, who have so many options, change it up every year. That way, by the time you get back to the same one you used, if the jersey program's still going on, it'll be like 30, 40 years probably, with the amount of jerseys Pittsburgh has, or Vancouver, just a team like that. They'd have so many options that they don't need to stick with the same one,
So
especially since they already have
a question on your program there, Beepo. So let's say, for instance, next season the Metro gets to do the vintage jersey program, and Pittsburgh and Philly play each other 5 times. Are we looking at 5 different jerseys for each of those teams, or are there going to be some games in there with just their standard home and road jerseys, or how would you work that out?
Yeah, no, I would say each team gets like 3 to 5, and like on their own. Not every divisional matchup is going to be a throwback matchup, just some of them. Because I like, as much as I wouldn't mind seeing different jerseys worn every that often, I also kind of like the idea of having it as a special event. So I'm kind of on the fence on there. Of course, it's me, but I'm kind of cutting it in the middle. You get 3 to 5. It's not 1. It's not 20. It's a couple. So I definitely wouldn't have every divisional matchup as a throwback matchup, since there's so many divisional matchups a year. Just a couple here and there, and whenever your jersey matches up with another team for the era, have it as that, or stick it there.
Right. So just, if we're moving into playoffs now, and as the current NHL rules are set up, teams are permitted 2 jerseys, a dark jersey and a white jersey during the playoffs. Would your vintage jersey program affect the playoffs in any way? Would they be permitted in the playoffs? Would you want the rules changed? How would your vintage jersey program affect the playoffs, Sean?
I think teams should have the choice, but they have to make that choice early enough to announce it, like as soon as they qualify. They have to have it made up in their minds. And I think that the best example of this was when Edmonton decided to wear their orange jersey as their home jersey in the playoffs. We knew right away. We knew when it was coming. It was exciting. It was nice to see. It made them pop, and it was interesting. And it was different from how San Jose does it when they make the playoffs, and it's like, well, time to wheel out the black jersey, that sort of thing, where it's like it's predictable, what's coming. Make teams have to really think about it. Don't just do it because you want, oh, they're gonna wear the vintage jerseys in the playoffs. Like really think about it and pick a jersey that has a little bit of history, and winning, I think, would be a good one. Don't just pick a thing. I mean, would it be interesting if the Islanders, say they keep their good play and the program existed this year, whip out the Fisherman as their dark jersey for the playoffs?
Oh boy.
Have that jersey finally make the playoffs? That'd be kind of cool, actually. I like that idea.
Now,
But, at the same time, that jersey never made the playoffs, and I don't think the team won more than 35 games in that thing. So.
that would be quite interesting. I don't know how well Islanders fans would react to their team going through the playoffs.
Half of them would love it.
Just half. Beepo, how would your vintage jersey program affect the playoffs?
I think there should only be two scenarios that a team uses their throwback in the playoffs. For one, if they kind of pull a Pittsburgh and plan on switching to it after that season. Because, the Penguins wore their black throwback in the 2016 playoff off-season switch to throwback full-time. I think that should be one scenario. The other should be a divisional matchup in the playoffs, which I think is unavoidable, but I only think in that case it should be worn for a maximum of 2 games in the series, 1 at each arena. And that's maximum. If the team doesn't even have to do that if they don't want to. If they don't want to wear throwbacks at all, fine, don't. But I don't want them to pull it out in the Cup final against a jersey that might not even look good against it. And I think the playoffs is definitely a better time to kind of tout your current brand as well. That way, the casual fans will be able to recognize it more easily. And if you win the Cup in it, it'll it won't look back on your old brand, and it won't kind of give that the light. It'll give your current look the light and the glory from winning the Cup.
Well, I'm a cranky old man who doesn't like change, so my vintage jersey program would not be included in the playoffs. Whatever, I like the current jersey system that they use in the playoffs. No need to change that as far as I'm concerned. So that's how that would affect. My vintage jersey program. Now, here's a question: you guys weren't expecting this, so we may not get the best answer, but if there was only one vintage jersey across the entire NHL that you could choose to come out next year, one single jersey, which one would it be? Sean.
For one game?
One game. One jersey.
One game, vintage jersey, and it gets a full edge release. Full Addy Zero,
treatment,
authentic release?
Yes.
All right. This is going to be a controversial pick, but I love this jersey so much. The Kings wheel out the 1998-1999 black jersey.
Black and purple?
And they reintroduced,
okay.
With the sunglasses on the lion. And they hand out a T-shirt at the game that is just the lion with the sunglasses on it.
And that's your one jersey you're waiting for.
I absolutely love this jersey. I have a big sign in my apartment of that logo that says, hang on. It says property of the LA Kings in fun 90s font. And I just have it up there because of the lion with the sunglasses. I think that's a wonderful thing. And in fact, if you could make a faux back with that, that'd be even better. But yeah, honor like Adam Deadmarsh or something.
Adam Deadmarsh. I would be more thinking of him on Colorado, but okay.
Really? Oh yeah, okay. Or who else was on those? They really weren't that good back then.
90? No, they were not.
Cristobal Huet.
Oh, really? Was Potvin around for 99? Was he there yet? Might have been a little later.
No, that was 03. All right, you go to Depot. I'm gonna figure out what player they're honoring that night.
All right, Depot, you got one vintage jersey to bring back next season. Which one would you choose?
Turdberger.
Turdberger, of course. Thanks for doing that. That's great.
I mean, in all seriousness, this is a really tough question considering that you're kind of putting us on the spot. Because I'm trying to think of a jersey that's sort of infamous, like the Turdberger or the Wild Wing or the Fish Sticks or the Burger King, but not such an obvious choice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like obvious choices for that kind of thing. It's just such a tough one.
I'll give you some time. I'll come up with my jersey, but there are a few runners up, but I can only choose one. But my runners up are, I'll take a Wild Wing anytime. I'll take a Fisherman anytime as far as throwbacks go. One that I would really like to see is the Brooklyn Americans, New York Americans, whatever. somehow make its way back into the NHL. I think any of those were, except for the the later year sleeve design one, but the really crazy wacky one would be really cool. But if I just had one choice, which is the whole point of this exercise, I'm choosing the 1974 to 76 California Golden Seals teal jersey with kind of backpack striping going over the shoulders, and the big waist stripe just says Seals on the front. But that would be my choice for the one vintage jersey I would like to see brought back. And I guess the Sharks would wear it, even though technically it's in Dallas's timeline. But so, Beepo.
All right, Ryan.
Yeah, go ahead. Who are we honoring for Kings 99 night?
Jamie Storr.
I think he's got
he was there. Do you know how long he was in LA?
Well, if it was 99,
1994 to 2003.
No way. 9 years.
9 seasons. So you know what? Yeah, Jamie Storr night. You get a Jamie Storr bobblehead, a shirt with the line with the sunglasses, holding the hockey stick, and they wear those jerseys for one night. That's and it's got #1 store on the back of the T-shirt. There we go. Perfect night. LA, make it happen.
I'm going to send you to Jamie Storr goaltending camp.
Did Sean not know an obscure player off the top of his head?
No, he had to research it.
Jamie Storr is not that obscure.
9 years in LA and in obscurity. Beepo, have you decided on your one be-all, end-all vintage jersey?
I think I have. My runners-up would be the ones that I mentioned. And I think that, honestly, I would probably pick the Seals one as well. But just to say something different is that, I'm going to go Montreal Maroons, 1925. I don't know why I thought of this one. I would just love to see something like this come back. And I think the Canadians would really be the only team that could wear it, even though I'm pretty sure they were rivals back then.
They were.
I think they could kind of put that rivalry under the bridge for a team that hasn't existed in many, many, many years.
So, Beepo, just to be clear, you're talking about the one with Montreal across the front or the Big M?
Oh, the Big M, sorry.
The Big M with 4 thin stripes on each arm and 2 on the waist.
Yep.
All right. Pretty cool. Not unlike a Toronto Arenas jersey.
Sorry?
Not unlike a Toronto Arenas jersey.
I did notice that, yeah. It's very similar to the Arenas, but it's not exactly the same.
Or the Aretnas.
Aretnas.
A really good runner-up is the 1940 to 44 Boston Bruins script jersey.
40 to 44. So you're talking about the yellow alternate that they had with kind of baseball logo on the front.
Yeah, that'd be really cool to see for one game.
That would work right now on the Adidas template quite well.
It looked very similar to the Montreal NHL 100 jersey, but better because it has color on it.
Yeah, looking at this, and you throw some TV numbers on there, this would work really well on the current Adidas jersey, and especially with the kind of faux knitted Winter Classic collar that they do. We got squared shoulder yokes. Yeah. The arms would be pretty blank, but you throw maybe oversized Stadium Series TV numbers on there. We got a black waist stripe. So that would be a pretty cool jersey. I'd be in favor of that. That'd be pretty cool. But as we mentioned,
another one too, even though it kind of defeats the purpose of this exercise. I don't really know if I want it to replace my other pick, but I want to see the Toronto Maple Leafs bring back the 45 to 48 red lettering.
Yes.
Yes, in support of the. I
actually ordered a hat with that not too long ago. I'm just waiting for it to come in now. It's for some reason one of my little pieces of jersey history and like jersey history lore that I know. It's just so obscure you would never expect it, but
they won.
I like it.
2 cups in that.
Did they? Oh, yeah, I guess that makes sense. But still, I don't think it's something that's too commonly known, is it?
In Leafland, it is.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Because Ted Kennedy won his first cups with those, and he's like god tier Toronto Maple Leaf. So
that's accurate. That is accurate. All right. So as we mentioned throughout the program, we'd love to hear what the listeners have for a vintage jersey program on Twitter @HockeyJC, or if you really want to get in depth, email us at hockeyjerseyconcepts.com. We'll be sure to read those on a future podcast. So let us know what you want to see from a vintage jersey program. We've had varying ideas across the board. I'm in the camp that wants to see far fewer retro jerseys just to make it special. Beepo and Sean had more situations where a retro jersey would be worn. So where do you fall on that scale? Let us know. Also, be sure to subscribe to all of our podcasts on the HJC Podcast Network. Share it with your friends. We got Fake or Authentic comes out every Thursday, and Throwback Throwdown comes out every Saturday. Right now on hockeyjerseyconcepts.com, the Cleveland Monsters redesign competition is going on, and that ends on February 8th. And after that ends, we got to start another competition. This one's pretty cool. Columbus Blue Jackets redesign, but you got to use Stinger as a primary logo on the home and road jerseys. So I'd like to thank Sean and Beepo for joining me on this episode. Again, we want to hear what you guys think, so let us know. Thanks for listening, everybody. Goodbye.